don't know how to act. Yeah, I'm pointing out facts. If I point a finger, that's point of attack. He'll point who's next. Flag on the plate, now I'm causing them death. We bet on ourselves, so what you expect? A die-hard fan, never live with regret. Yes, sir. Go to my neck. Burgundy flex. Who wants the smoke? We bringing it home. Beat like gas. Look how we step. Who we got next? Step on the right, step on the left. Who do we rep? Commanders. Where's my soldiers? Right side. Commanders. Where's my soldiers? Left side. Commanders. Where's my soldiers? Watch the middle. Commanders. Where's my soldiers? High off the way that this sound, they turn up as soon as they feed the ground. I am not playing around. I hit them, I bet that they feeling me now.
Welcome, one and all across the nation and around the world. I welcome you all to episode 27, 28. Which one do we have tonight? We have 27. We're not at 28 yet. My name is Drew Willingham. We are back for the Commanders Gridiron Report for the fourth consecutive week. I would like to apologize for us not being together for this program on the original scheduled date and time on Tuesday at 1:05 p.m. Eastern time. I will open the show again. This is at least the second consecutive week me doing this. I might have done it all 4 consecutive weeks. Those of you who watch this either live or syndicated and have a greater memory than I do when it comes to those kind of things, you could tell me out here in the comments. If I know it's at least been 2 weeks in a row, but I want to apologize for being almost 3.5 days later. Was planning on doing this earlier today, but had some things going on in the personal life priorities, had to push it back a little bit. Did Total Football Talk Extra. And then as Total Football Talk Extra was going on with Ryan McCarthy, a huge shout out to him, kept the show going for a few minutes while I was tending to the fact that my internet completely just went, which we're back now. The internet is back now, thankfully. But during Total Football Talk Extra earlier, I had to revert to using the cellular talking device propped up against the computer screen to get through the show. And luckily, StreamYard, which is the service I use to stream all of my content, luckily, that worked out just fine as far as doing it through the phone. But now we're back on the computer. The internet has been restored. So the personal part of me not being here earlier with this show or completing Total Football Talk with you just seeing a green screen behind me, all that's fired back up. Electricity was here. Everything was here except for the internet connection to make the, I guess, fancy parts happen out here in these streams. But shout out to those of you watching through Sartoba Media, whether it's through Facebook, Instagram. Well, not Instagram yet. Still got to finish setting that up. Bing. But through Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, even some of my personal accounts. Thank you to those of you in the personal life as well tuning in. Also, shout out to Team MBS Media as well for the YouTube channel for having this on live right now, and A7BN Sports live on their content channels as well. But thank you all very much for the streaming part of this. As we get through the opening, just to let you know about the delay. Next week, next Tuesday, I've said this even the times I've even said it in the previous weeks, but I'm almost 100% sure, and I say almost, but it's more so leaning towards the 100% side, leaning towards the fact that we will be at the regular time, and once I can get in the rhythm of doing it, we'll be fine. Before we get started with the show again, another change that happened, which was different than in the previous years. I went from working Wednesday through Saturday, which is a time frame and day schedule, well, not day schedule, but the scheduled days portion. The majority of what I've worked for 7, 8, 9 years, somewhere in there. And I was working 4 p.m. to 3 a.m., which is more like working 3 p.m. to 4 a.m. because of the drive time that I have for my career that I work in, right? So working those hours, getting home 3 and 4 a.m., sometimes even later. This week it's been later. I've been getting home like 5 and 6 and 7 o'clock in the morning. Trying to do that and turn around and do a Tuesday show after already being up the morning before, because I was going to do Total Football Talk with Cole, and my power went out for a little bit because of the storm that was coming through. And then today was the internet, no storm, just something going on with the ISP, the internet service provider, is all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to leave it at this point. But within all that, there were the obstacles that kept me from doing this at 1:05 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday. Next week is projected to be an easier schedule. Once I get in the habit of doing the Monday show, which is more privy and more important than this, no offense, but doing that with Cole, going to work, getting up on Tuesday at a certain time to be able to do this show will be here on Tuesdays. But for right now, if I have to push it back to Friday, I will. I've been trying to schedule it for Wednesday in the afternoon before I go to work. It just hasn't worked out because I've been getting home so late that the rest is more important. So the rest and the priorities and all have been more important. That's why this show hasn't been on Tuesdays. I'm hoping very soon that changes once everything kind of balances out a little bit. But the priorities come first. There are also some personal things outside of all that. I'm not going to blame it more on one side or the other. But in order for everything to stay afloat, which it is, and it's working out just fine, except for the one thing, and that is this show. This show is the only thing that's been getting impacted as far as not happening at the scheduled date and time that I would like to do it in. And it's okay. And for those of you who are tuning in now while it's live, I appreciate you, being here and watching on a different date and time, especially on a Friday night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern time, when you could be out doing stuff. And I'll probably, go out and do some stuff this weekend. But after everything I just said, working Monday through Thursday and genuinely being on call Friday and Saturday night with my full-time career this weekend, I do have the weekend off. So that's enough of the personal stuff, but I have the weekend off, and I was hoping to do this show earlier in the day to enjoy a little bit of a Friday night. But considering the internet came back within a couple hours of it going down, I decided, you know what, after 9, since I still have the computer up and everything, the green screen still up, the lights still plugged in, let's do it. And I got a lot of things I want to talk about on this show. I got to circle back with some things that I said last week. We got to recap the game against the Cardinals. We've got to preview the game against the Browns. I got some footage, not video footage, but like pictures from my man Darrell Owens, who was at the game in Arizona. He gets to travel and do these things and get great photos of these games, whether on the road or at the field in FedEx. And he has, blessed me with the privilege of sharing them with you on this program and these platforms. So that's us getting caught up with why this time we're going live right now, why it's later than what it was scheduled earlier in the day, why it got pushed back to another time that even got pushed back even further because of the internet. But the important thing is we're all here. We all woke up today and we get to talk football. Did Total Football Talk Extra earlier. Again, another shout out to Ryan McCarthy. We talked Canadian football. On Monday, Cole held it down, even though I unfortunately couldn't be there, and I still feel bad about it. Couldn't be there to talk the NFL. We're going to be back on track next week, though, ladies and gentlemen. It's all good. But everything personally is going well, professionally, and here with the content, everything is fine. Just had to get through the weather earlier in the week, and then the ISP issues tonight. With all that being said, I want to acknowledge some comments first, and then we'll get this show officially started as we are 10 minutes in since the intro. My man Sick Diggy is in the house. Always gets me hyped up when my man Sick Diggy is in the house and says, ladies and gentlemen, break out the burgundy and gold. It's time for the Commanders Gridiron Report. My man Sick Diggy. And you know what? I'll probably even break out the belt after the commercial break. because we got some things to celebrate. But tonight, it's Commanders Gridiron Report. Whether you're watching on Team MBS Media, Sartoba Media, or on A7BN Sports, thank you all for tuning the expletive in tonight so we can see one expletive epic show. I'm not drinking too much of the Kool-Aid already, all right? I'm not drinking too much of the fucking Kool-Aid, all right? I've been real about this team. I've talked about the things they've exposed they need to work on. But the important thing is they have been working on it, and they have been improving each week. Will it remain consistent? I'll tell you here in a few minutes if you stick around on this program. Thank you to my man, Folk Daddy, on Facebook, tuning in and throwing that like out there. I see you, brother. I saw you earlier today. And if you were listening earlier, this is the first weekend that I haven't been on call since my schedule changed. So I might have to watch football. The Eagles officially, since me coming back in there this Sunday, if you're down. I got the card. I can scan in. I will meet you there. And if you are awake, I just might call you after this show because I've been meaning to do it this week because we got some things to catch up on. All is good, my man. Happy to see you out there in these streams. Sick Diggy also says, well, certain things are beyond your control, Drew Willingham. A lot of shenanigans, not by your own hands. And you are absolutely mother, father, and right. To the point, I need to click this button right here.
Let me talk to you.
It was a total
Surprise, motherfucker.
when the ISP went down earlier. And I'm saying ISP because I don't want to say the name of the ISP because I don't want my connection to go down again because the last time I was talking about the ISP on Total Football Talk, it took me the hell out of here to where I had to use my cellular talking device to talk Canadian football earlier. And right now we are talking Commanders football that I've been trying to talk about for the past 3 days. And we're finally doing it now so that way I can live my life this weekend, tomorrow, and Sunday with the rest of the weekend off. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. My man Brandon Guy out there tuning in, throwing a like on the video as well. Thank you as always to all of you tuning in, no matter what platform you are watching. Right, the expletive now, because it is later in the night and it is because I'm feeling the shenanigery out here from what happened with the ISP earlier. Let's continue on with one more comment, and then we will officially get into Commanders action. What's important is that we've got the show rocking and rolling, strutting and strolling like HPK down the aisle to the ring. And tomorrow, for those of you who are wrestling fans, it is Bad Blood. It is the what they used to call pay-per-view, now the PLE, Premium Live event tomorrow. So wrestling fans, get ready. Also, we have a wrestling show that's debuting on October 19th. My man Corey Mann, I'm going to officially say it, is coming to Sartoba Media as he has dropped some bombs out there with his promos, and we've got a few more promos to drop here soon. But we will officially have a wrestling show. It'll be produced, edited, everything written. The guest brought, like whatever he does, it's all his baby. We are just privileged to have it here on Sartoba Media as more content. It will be on Saturdays. The official time will drop soon, but it will be on Saturdays. His plan is to do it every single week. And, he may miss a week here or there, or may have to take some breaks here and there, which is understandable. Life happens. But the important thing is my man's getting back in the game, and he's come to Sartoba Media for an additional person to be here doing content to help me out here in these streams and help you out, the viewer, as our numbers grow. They're small. We're small time right now. We've done some cool things here and there with certain platforms, TikTok, YouTube, you name it. Other ones, it's hit or miss. But the important thing is we get to have fun. Like Sick Diggy right here lives in another country. Okay, lives in Norway. All right. Doesn't even live in the United States. He's tuning in to talk football with us. He knows more about soccer and Pele and all that stuff than I do. But he can talk football with us, and he's here. As we brought the fire tonight, Sartoba Media, where the struggle is real. To be awesome. All right, the shenanigans. Let's table the shenanigans for now. Let's talk some NFL. I know you guys are hyped, ready to do it, because you're probably on the other side of the screen saying this.
Would you please shut the hell up?
I'd rather hear that than this, though.
Stop it. Get some help.
What?
Oh!
Yeah. Yeah.
officially, before we get started, from me to you watching on your phone, tablet, computer screen, I want to say this before we officially get started. And thank you for tuning in to this production right here.
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Let's take this thing to the 1st and 10.
They are the Washington Commanders. New name, new marks, new uniform.
Soldiers, are we ready for Operation Burgundy?
It is time to discuss the 1st and 10, the epic beatdown. The epic beatdown from the Commanders to the Cardinals this past weekend. Now, you're probably saying, Drew, you're drinking way too much of the expletive Kool-Aid. No, I am not. Because if you have watched the previous weeks of episodes for this show, I've said for the past couple of weeks, this mother, father, and team was going to lose. And I was wrong. And I'm happy to be wrong. I would love to be wrong about the fact that I expect an L and they get a dub, rather than the fact that I say they're going to win and get the L. Let's just be 100 here for those of you out here in these streets. Keep dropping the dimes in the chat. You're watching on Facebook, YouTube, whatever. You drop a comment. I'll be able to put it up on the screen and we discuss it. Have I said otherwise? Have I been drinking way too much of like stuff like this? Doesn't have water in it, but this actually does have water in it. Have I been drinking too much of the Kool-Aid sitting here saying that the Commanders are going to be 3-1 and they are going to be sunshine on a rainy day to the NFL? No, have I said that? No, I have not. This is a pleasant surprise. I mean, come on now. Those of you out there who are commie fans just like me, back in the day, we supported the formerly known as the REDSKINS. It could still come back eventually. Maybe not. Let's not tread too heavy on that because I don't have any time tonight to discuss the snowflakes' feelings out there about certain things. That's why I respectfully call them the formerly known as the REDSKINS that I will wear for as long as I'm breathing out here. And microphone, I'm sorry. Computer, I'm sorry. To the people, I'm sorry for looking like we were in the middle of a mother, father, and earthquake. I'm fired up. I'm fired up because this team, let's look at the graphic one more expletive time here. Look at what they did. 42-14. The Commanders quarterback dominated in week 4 win over the Cardinals is the title of this show right here. As some of you out there are laughing, cracking up, having a great time. I know those of you out there who love the rival team, the Cowboys, are not having as great of a season. It's not horrible. I mean, you still have a chance. I mean, there's still, you could potentially still win the NFC East. So can the Eagles. The Giants definitely are not. But I'm not sitting here today going to be drinking way too much of the Kool-Aid telling you that the Commanders are going to win the NFC East. It is way too early for that. I will be in attendance during the Week 8 contest when they play the Bears. My man Paul Kelly and I are taking a trip, and we got some really nice seats, and it's a present to ourselves. You know, it's a privilege to be able to do these things as an adult and be able to actually go and sit there, not be on the media side or whatever, and actually sit there and enjoy the game as a fan. But also to be able to see it live and to come back that following Tuesday and to give you guys a recap from the live perspective there. Looking forward to it. But what I've seen in the past 4 weeks, especially the last two games they've won, they've absolutely dominated their opponents they've had the past 2 weeks. They have been improving in certain things, but also certain things have been masked as well by Jaden Daniels and his ability to move around in the pocket and extend plays with his legs that Sam Howell could not do last year because Sam Howell was taking one too many sacks and was leading the league in sacks, looking like Derek Carr from back in the day, or hell, even his brother David Carr when he was playing with the Texans and set the record for the most sacks as a quarterback had taken in a season because the Texans absolutely sucked. Now, the Commanders retooled during the offseason. between their draft picks and what they had with options there and in the free agent market. They retooled. They made some good moves. They are still far off from being a contender to a Super Bowl, in my opinion, at this stage. We're only 4 weeks in. They are not like the Detroit Lions out there who've been building something special for several expletive years. And I'm saying expletive when I want to drop an F-bomb or say something else. Like, I'm really trying to contain myself in the excitement here because I am feeling some type of way as a fan, but as someone who's going to actually give you their true analytic take on this, and especially being on other platforms right now, I don't want to drop that F-bomb, so I'm going to say expletive when I want to say it because I am expletive hype right now, okay, from what I'm seeing. Right here and now, though, it's too early to drink the total Kool-Aid because what we're seeing now is great, but the Commanders have played some subpar teams. Look at what the Cardinals were last year, and they were without Kyler Murray for most of that, but look at what they were during that time that he wasn't there. They've also lost some pieces. The veteran leadership from what they had with Zach Ertz is now on the Commanders, helping them out, and he's been making plays. In some cases, he's looked like the old Zach Ertz with certain things he's done, but it's not as consistent as it was back in the day. So we're getting some flashes in the pan of old greatness. The weapons that Terry McLaurin, as one of them, have given to Jaden Daniels and what they were able to do in these past couple games have been tremendous in comparison to what Terry's been working with for several seasons now. All the different quarterbacks, and he's still had several 1,000-yard seasons. I mean, it's pretty remarkable when you look at that. I mean, Devontae Adams hadn't even put up like numbers like that consistently with the quarterbacks he's had since he left, over with the Packers and then gone to the Raiders. And we already see where that situation's going. Terry is proven to himself and to this organization that he could do it with anybody, but the fact that he's gotten what he's wanted this year, and you can see the leadership from him and them having the ability to spread the ball out to other talent and also develop their talent in the moment. You look at Luke McCaffrey and you look at the other receivers, and they are still in the conversation, even though I don't think they're going to do it. They're still in the conversation to be able to land somebody like a Devontae Adams. Could it happen? I don't know. I'm not going to go that far right here and now, as we're only in the 1st and 10. We still have a lot of this show left to go. But the overall part, just wanted to encompass here. The Commanders are 3-1, y'all. Did you think that was going to happen in the first 4 weeks? I sure as hell didn't. I wasn't calling it. I was not calling it. It's a pleasant surprise to me that we don't always know what we're completely looking at in that moment. And it's a pleasant surprise. At the same time, we're going to break down some things a little bit more as we go throughout this show. And we're going to answer some questions on if they can keep this going or not. And the biggest stat I want to throw out there is they've only played one divisional opponent, that being the worst one of them all, the Giants. They still have to play the Cowboys twice. They still have to play the Eagles twice, and they get to play the Giants another time. So if the Giants keep playing the way they are, I mean, that's another victory. But, the other two teams they have to play are potentially going to be even harder, the hardest matchups of them all. When you look at some of the good teams the Commanders still have to play this year, those 4 games between those two divisional opponents are going to make the most impact on this division right here. Even if the Commanders won the majority of their games outside the division the rest of the year, they still have 5 more divisional games remaining. Still a very long season. So to those of you who are Commanders fans and watching this at the beginning of this show and have watched throughout, or even if you're just a fan of expletive football, enjoy it. I'm not telling you to not enjoy it because I'm enjoying it myself. I mean, it has been great. And hearing the kind words from other people within the football community, finally talking about the Commanders like they're relevant. This could potentially be like 2012. Hopefully it doesn't end as like 2012 did, because that shook the franchise up for many years. And that one player, RG3's remainder of his career. I really like what I'm seeing from Jaden Daniels, but he's really small. He can take some shots, but as the season goes on and those shots add up, as they have 17 games in the season and they still have 13 more games to go, and you got to think about the cold weather as it gets cooler and gets colder in the certain places they got to go. Historically, whether you're younger or you're older, and me being in my mid-30s at this point, mid to late 30s, I guess you can say at this point, weather does affect how injuries take place and how long it takes to heal. And of course, the environment in which you live in, like the outside weather, and then of course, mental stuff can affect it too. Everything happens and can affect you. Okay, the best way I can put it. The whole point I want to get down to is this: is we're going to really see how this team does in November and December, because that's when the biggest test of them all come. And then the biggest test of the overshadows that is if you do make it to January, we'll be on the first week of January into the playoffs. How do you affect that weather in the winter? And how do you affect the true great talent that you have to face to even get to the next round? Because more than likely you would play in the wild card, go into the divisional round. And the Commanders haven't gotten past the divisional round since 1994? So 30 years. That's a conversation we can have later in the show. But I'm just saying, Commanders fans, enjoy this for what it is now. But please do not say anything wild like we are going to the Super Bowl, because every single one of those fans, whether they are for our rival teams or for our own, I wish I could get out of jail free card and smack some sense into them. But I don't feel like dealing with courts and with fines and with the blowback. And I like having a clean record so I can have a decent career outside of what I like to do right here. But there's nothing wrong with saying that you want to smack some sense into them, okay? Because they're not going to the Super Bowl this year, okay? It'd be like winning the lottery, okay? So put your numbers in now, because if they make it to the Super Bowl, you've got a really good chance of winning the lottery too while you're at it, and having a pet unicorn and living to be like 400 years old and healthy and can still like slam dunk a basketball at the age of 182. Okay. Come on now. Even the chambers that LeBron James sleeps in aren't even going to get him to live that old, let alone everything else I said. We've had a great time here at the 1st and 10. Let's see what comments we got out here in the chat, and then we will move on to our next segment. My man Lawrence Leaf, back in the day with the School and the Sports, is back here in the chat and says, Jaden Daniels has been doing great, taking too many shots at times and looks thin. Like you're definitely saying things that I was just talking about, and I wasn't even looking at the comments then. So great points there. It says, not if, but when he takes a big shot, can Marcus do a decent enough job of backing him up? That's another big question. Has the organization changed enough that it's not just Jaden Daniels? And the last question that you have, I'm going to say, well, let me bring that back up real quick. I accidentally clicked the wrong button. This right here, that last one right there, is a huge question, because you look at Nick Algoretti on the offensive line. You look at the development and the talent of the other wide receivers. Terry McLaurin's been a decoy for the first 2 games. It wasn't until the last 2 games that we got production out of him. The first 2 games, they were still figuring things out. But now that he's more of a decoy in some areas, you get production out of Luke McCaffrey. You get production in other ways. Even within your running game, it gets affected too. Brian Robinson Jr.'s getting 100+ yards a game and putting up multiple touchdowns. You look at Jeremy McNichols, who put up 2 touchdowns in this last game. You look at the fact that you got Noah Brown, who's been looking good. Zacchaeus was the leading receiver in yards last week. He didn't have a touchdown, and he had 1 less reception than McLaurin, but he had the most yards out of it. Zach Ertz has been turning back the clock in some ways as far as what he's been doing. He's not putting up huge numbers when I say turn back the clock, like 85 to 100 yards, but you're getting more than 1 to 2 receptions out of him a game. He's moving the chains with the catches that he's making. He's setting up plays that will move the chains outside of that. But Luke McCaffrey hasn't been putting up huge numbers, but like his 1 to 2 catches a game are like more than 10 yards, like 15 to 20-yard catches. So he's extending drives as well. So even if you're only getting less than a handful of plays that you're making an impact, they're not dropping a lot of passes. Jaden Daniels isn't having a lot of incompletions. He's got like what, an 81% completion percentage right now. And in the Monday night game the week before with the Bengals, he had a 91%, which was the best for a rookie and one of the best ever, if not the best ever on that stage. Come on now. So it definitely, he's doing a great job, like you said. The team around him, it's not all Jaden Daniels, like you're saying within your questions here too, because like I was saying with Nick Algoretti, and even with some of the pieces that were there before, I think the change in culture with Dan Quinn, and especially with what old Cliff is doing over there, running the offense and the plays that he's calling, and just the overall chemistry in the demeanor and the attitudes of everybody is so much different than it was the previous year, because the previous year there was a lot of decompression. There was still the old coaching staff that was brought in from the previous ownership. There was a lot of fire under the seats. They were catching the tails on fire, and that's why they only had 4 wins. But the most important thing that I will say is they are having fun. And that's come on, like they're having fun out there. They're enjoying it. You see it in their faces, and you'll see it here in the content that I'm about to show here shortly. And as I go through the comments, I think you guys will agree. Nah, you were just being realistic last week. You didn't think the Commanders could step it up against the Cardinals given their overall youth. Yes, and you're spot on with that. That's exactly how I felt. I did not think that they were going to be able to step it up against a team that is young like the Cardinals, but is a little bit older and has experienced similar things that the Commanders did last year without Kyler Murray. But right here and now, I can honestly say that the Commanders are better than the Cardinals after seeing what I saw last week. Consistency is going to be key. And just like Lawrence said in the previous statement that I just had up here, like, what's he going to do, or how's he going to react when he takes the first big shot? He has taken a couple shots already, but not as big as what he's saying in his previous statement, for one. And my biggest, security blanket that I'll throw over the whole thing is, what's it going to be like when it gets the big hit in December? Late November, December, when you're playing in, 30-degree and below weather. That's going to be the biggest test. What he has on his side is youth right now. This will be a bigger question, I feel like, in years 4, 5, and 6. But Marcus Mariota's proven that in other places he wasn't the guy for a reason. We'll see how he does as a backup. But I just got a feeling that at some point you're going to have to turn to him due to injury or being shook up or whatever the case may be, and the team will regress. But we got plenty of a show left to get into that. However, this is Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals. Murray, as their quarterback, is oftentimes going to be a hindrance to anything good for Arizona, absolutely, because he gets in his own way, because he wants to be a professional video game player and likes to play Call of Duty, and that's why me and Cole call him Kyler Duty on our show, Total Football Talk, which you can see Mondays from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Bing! On Sartoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome. Or, more likely LinkedIn. Not usually Facebook. This is a very rare time that I'm on Facebook. I'm feeling kind of springy tonight, so that's why we're here using the meta airwaves. But other than that, Sick Diggy also says, nothing wrong with being pessimistic at times. Blind enthusiasm / optimism can be very counterproductive in certain situations. That's how I felt. And, looking at it on paper over the past, couple weeks before the game, it would be foolish to be up here and say, yeah, the Commanders are going to win 42-14 this upcoming week. My name's Gus Swayze. That's what Baker Mayfield went as on that show on Amazon Prime, the Eli Manning, I forget what it's called, but you dress into a different character and you blend in with fans, you act like one of the fans, and at the end of it, you reveal who you are. And he was Gus Swayze. So That's basically how I would be if I'd be up here going, they're going to win this upcoming week. You know what I'm saying? No, I mean, especially 42-14, people would really took that and ran with it, especially if I was wrong. Lawrence Off says, Robinson is a workhorse too. Good points. I won't get too excited, but trends are positive. Great podcast, brother. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And he even said they're having fun. It looks like he even said that a little bit before I even gave my take on that. So great call on that. Thank you to all of you who are watching this on Facebook, on YouTube, between here on Sertoba and on Team MBS Media, as well as A7BN Sports and the other platforms that we are live on right now. Please like, share, and subscribe no matter what platform you're watching on, and help us continue to build the audience out here in these streams. We're going to go ahead and take this into our next segment. We got to look into the Burgundy Flex review and see what we got to talk about when it comes to that content that I was going to tell you about showing here in a second.
Go to my neck, Burgundy Flex. Who wants the smoke? We bringing it home. Be like that.
Now, I clicked the picture. It was supposed to appear right here. Don't tell me this is the beginning of the ISP stuff again. But with the Burgundy Flex review, here it is. You got Dan Quinn. You got the GM, and you got Cliff. All right there in one picture. Did they have a lot to do with what we just saw this past weekend? You're about to find out, as we are here for episode 20, Mother Fathering 7. Thank you for tuning in. Now, when it comes to week 4 and the highlights that we have here, let's go ahead and take a look at them. Shout out to Darrell Owens for the pictures. As we've got Jeremy McNichols here for one of his 2 touchdowns that he scored in this game, tossing the ball up in the air and happy to be in the end zone. You got Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, to their connection that they had as they scored a touchdown together on that day. The tandem of those two is going to grow and to be something special as the one on the left remains healthy. That's going to be the biggest question of them all. Then, of course, you have right here that one point in the game where the two teams got a little chippy with what they were saying throughout that game, and they were having some words in that moment amongst themselves. But they got back on track, or at least the Commanders never got off track because they were laying the smackdown the entire game, as you see. Right here, this is the one catch that Luke McCaffrey had in that moment, which was a 17-yard catch for a first down to help extend the drive to contribute towards one of many scores in this game. There it is. Shout out to Darrell Owens again for this content. You look at Scary Terry right there doing the touchdown celebration dance of his own right there in the end zone. Just happy that he has a competent quarterback in 2024. Right here and now, we have to take a look at this next one. This is Zach Ertz in the end zone, celebrating with his teammates after the Scary Terry touchdown. Here in that moment, as the Commanders had already scored 33 mother-fathering points in that moment. Take a look at this next picture right here. Look at Zach Ertz. Look at this team right here. Look at everybody in this end zone. Well, that's not Zach Ertz, but look at everybody in this end zone right here. That being Ben Sinnott and what he did in that moment. Everybody is happy for Big Ben. Big Ben, one of the rookies that's part of this team right here, has definitely been making contributions, and everybody is loving the addition of Ben Sinnott. Now, right here, we have to take a look at this. This is Austin Eckler in this moment with the ball. Actually, this is not Austin Eckler in the moment. I was absolutely wrong in that moment. This right here, Jeremy McNichols again with the ball, running it down the sidelines, getting tackled and making plays out here in this game. Then you got to look right here. You got old number 4 making an impact. Frankie Louvu on the defense. He had 5 tackles on the day with 2 assists and even had a half of a sack. Not a whole sack, but he contributed with a half of one. Right here, look at how happy he is to be playing on a competent team yet again. It's right here, another Jeremy McNichols shot. he is loving the game of football in this 2024 season, doing what he can to extend the drive, extend the plays, and get a dub for his team. Right here and now we move on to Jaden Daniels with one of his plays that he extended outside of the pocket. As on the day, he had 8 carries for 47 yards and a rushing touchdown. Just look at him. Would you just look at it? In the words of Ed Bassmaster, would you just look at it? Would you just look at him running here and now in this game as a defender is like, holy expletive, this guy is going to change the league. Back here and now, we got to take a look at other things. The Soldiers of the Week will come here soon, as I accidentally clicked on the button a little bit too soon for those of you who got a quick sneak peek to it. But right here, this kid is a huge spark to the offense. When we look at an in-depth look at the Burgundy Flex review and the fact that he had 233 yards and a touchdown, he did throw an interception, but that interception that he threw was only one of 4 incompletions. He threw 3 incompletions and 1 interception. Besides that, he had 26 completed passes. I mean, think about that. That's pretty remarkable when you look at what the Commanders, the Washington football team, and the formerly known as the REDSKINS have been working with since 2012 when RG3 went down. Okay. Kirk Cousins had some bright moments there, but we didn't really see what Kirk Cousins could become and the potential that he really displayed to be true until he went to Minnesota. And now with Atlanta later in his career and what he's done in a short time there, they are 3-2 in Atlanta. But that team right there did something special last night with how they came back, and they're lucky they clocked the ball with only 1 second left. But I digress on that. I'll talk about that more next Monday. But look at what they've had to deal with since 2016 when he left, okay? 2017, the first year without him. And the rotation of quarterbacks that's been in for that team, then even the rotation of quarterbacks, you could say they were in between the years of when Mark Brunell was there, when they were last going to the playoffs before that 2012 run and before the Kirk Cousins era. You could even look at the rotation of quarterbacks between that time and when RG3 and Kirk Cousins came to the team in 2012. That's the biggest problem this team has had, is a competent quarterback and one that can extend plays with his legs and do it smart and get down and slide like this kid has done. He's displaying early on that he's got what it takes. But this mojo has to stay the same with this team, because I think a lot of the morale and the culture within that locker room and the people that are the leaders of that team, who are the coaches of that team, it has a lot to do with them just as much as it has to do with Jaden Daniels being the guy that was necessary to come in to be the quarterback. All right, I'm going to drink enough of that Kool-Aid. But we're not going to get too far ahead of ourselves tonight. What I am going to say here and now is Jaden Daniels is playing very well, but there are others on this team who are playing very well that are helping him shine, because it's an A to B connection. It's just like in IT when you plug in a cable. The other end of that is doing something. It's connecting to something or controlling something, no matter what type of source you're using to power that device, okay? So when Jaden throws the ball, it takes the other end to catch the ball, okay? It takes the other end to move after that, to get to the ball, but then also to extend the plays with himself to get first downs and scores and this, that, and the third. So not all just one person. There are multiple people taking effect to this, and we're going to see more of that as this season continues, and hopefully it continues to elevate beyond this season, because I've already told you a lot of how I'm feeling when it comes to this team already. Ryan McCarthy is in the house. I know he is loving seeing me actually have internet again, to where I'm not using my cell phone to get through a show. Shout out again to him, just like I did at the beginning of this episode, because, he kept the thing going earlier. Because just imagine if this was what I was doing earlier and I was by myself doing it like I was right now, and that happened, the entire show would go off. We'd have to create a whole new stream because it probably wouldn't still be going live, and it would have caused a mess. At least we get to get our entire thoughts of what this show was supposed to be for this episode out from start to finish now, as the notification that came from Xfinity when it said your service has been restored. I'm counting on them to keep everything together, because ISPs make a big difference out here in these streams. Jayden Daniels also showed maturity when he bounced back after that interception. Yes, that is a very, very huge statement right there, and one that I was going to actually put the icing on the cake with as we rounded into the next segment. Huge, huge statement right there that he made. Not only that you just made right there, but a huge statement that he made for the remainder of that game. Because at the beginning of this game, the first quarter was pretty close, back and forth between these two teams. It was 7-7 at the end of the first quarter. But from the second quarter on, the Commanders were waxing that expletive, because second quarter they scored 10 points to 0 for the Cardinals. It was 17-7 at halftime. The Commanders were looking good, and they never looked back after that, because third quarter, the Commanders put up 10 points to the Cardinals 7. They were still scoring more points than the Cardinals then. And even in the fourth quarter, when they blanked the Cardinals for the second out of 4 quarters, the second quarter and the fourth quarter, the Cardinals didn't score any points. So the Commanders scored another 15 points to the Cardinals 0 in the fourth quarter. And that's how they took this game. Okay. So it was the game plan. They didn't let up. They stayed true to themselves. And like you just said here, even a mistake like an interception, they showed maturity. Jayden Daniels, especially, like with what you're saying for this interception. But even some small things. There wasn't a lot of penalties. They've been learning from their mistakes that they made in the first 2 games when they were 1-1, which is why they've been able to produce better numbers in the past 2 games. And they played teams that a couple of years ago were a part of the best of the league, like the Bengals, who were just in the Super Bowl not too long ago, and the Cardinals, who they were talking about being in Super Bowl contention before Kyler got hurt. And then, we saw how last year went. And then this year, they have not been what they hoped they were going to be after the way this offseason went for them. So my apologies for this light that keeps shining down here. Let me see if I can adjust the light on that a little bit. There we go. Hopefully that light doesn't keep on shining down. Let it shine. No, we're in the wrong spot. All right. But right here and now, when it comes to this game right here, huge statement right there by them, as well as Sick Dicky in the comments. Ryan says, hooray for functional interwebs. Absolutely. And for that, I got to acknowledge him.
Acknowledge me.
There it is, my man. When it comes to that, gotta love functional interwebs. And not having to use a little cellular talking device to get through a program, as they say on Pat McAfee show. Right here and now, Sick Diggy says, greetings, Ryan McCarthy, followed by, it seemed like the Commanders wanted it more. The Cardinals started to get tired, and Kyler Murray got in his own way. As you got to emphasis on the O, because that's the closest they're going to get to a dub anytime soon when it comes to the Cardinals team, if they continue to play like that.
Let's get ready to rumble!
You can't handle the truth.
We'll see if you can. We'll see if you can either, because you're probably over there saying, and it failed me. I clicked the button, and it didn't do anything. Let's try it again.
Hell to the no, to the no, no, no. Hell no, to the no.
Yeah, keep on up.
I got my swagger back.
I think the ISP is trying to tell me this.
You should know your role and shut your mouth.
Because when I clicked the button and nothing happened, it was a total.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Oh!
Yeah.
When it comes to the shenanigans, I got it locked up in here because the buttons are ready to be clicked.
Oh, my brother, testify.
Yes, I just did a Roman Reigns for you guys. As right here, Sick Dicky says, no! Followed by the laughing emojis because the ISP got him again. In the words of my man Hawk, got his ass. Now, we are at the end of the Burgundy Flex review. Let's go ahead and take this into our first commercial break. Hopefully, you guys will stick around or rejoin us after the first commercial break because we still have the Soldiers of the Week, the Showstopper, the Opponent of the Week, and the final drive to get through. This is going to be an extended episode of the Commanders Gridiron Report because I'm just feeling froggy tonight.
Commanders, where my soldiers, right side. Commanders, where my soldiers, left side.
Whether it's news, the largest egg producer finds bird flu in chickens at a Texas plant, weather, devastating tornadoes rip through the heart of the United States, inspiration, a breast cancer survivor completed the journey of chemotherapy, and now begins a future one of matrimony or sports. Michael Jordan is shown on a photo with Diddy. LeBron James has a video extolling the virtues of a Diddy party. This has been yet another beating a dead horse presentation. We got you covered. BS3 Network, in association with Comey Media Incorporated, proudly present The Morning Shift with Cole Johnson. Live every weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, look. Hey, stop playing games. Y'all already know. Go ahead and toss him some Willie Bucks. Ain't nobody playing around. Hey, $ DWillie87. Go ahead, hit him up on the Cash App, and go ahead and give him some Willie Bucks. Look at Drew looking stoic, ladies and gentlemen. Stoic on that $10 bill. So go ahead, slide my man over some Willie Bucks, and we good. That's all I'm saying. We good. How about some Willie Bucks?
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Drew Willingham.
In this case, yeah, you put the blame on Kyle Shanahan for apparently not preparing the team enough for the overtime rules, supposedly.
Cole Johnson.
Peyton was considered the winner, and he was the darling of all darlings for Gerald.
With a special appearance by Tyrone Alizé McDummy.
Ain't nobody calling me. Text. Delete.
Join these two football enthusiasts as they give you Total Football Talk. Live every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central on the Sertoba Media and the Comey Media YouTube channels.
Commanders, where my soldiers, right side. Commanders, where my soldiers, left side.
Welcome back to the mother-fathering Commanders Gridiron Report. I'm your host, Drew Willingham, and we have one epic show to still bring you after the first commercial break. Here, brought to you by the one and only
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Get ready. We are back. Let's take it to the Soldiers of the Week.
Where my soldiers, right side. Commanders, where my soldiers, left side.
And with the Soldiers of the Week, I want to start out with an honorable mention, something that I haven't had a chance to do before because the team hasn't played well enough for me to actually do this. So when it comes to the Soldiers of the Week, acknowledging the standouts from Week 4, with this week's honorable mention, we're going to go with Jeremy McNichols, the one who was just outside of our top 3 to pick for this week, as he had 8 carries for 68 rushing yards. Not completely stellar numbers on the day. I mean, they were very productive and much better than what he normally does. But the big stat line here was the fact that he had 2 rushing touchdowns. So that's why I have Jeremy McNichols in the Soldiers of the Week honorable mention. Something that if this team continues to play the way that they have been, we'll have to name one person who's outside of the top 3 and have an honorable mention. And this week, I felt like Jeremy McNichols was the one who was just on the cusp of being in the top 3. Now, when it comes to the Soldiers of the Week in the top 3 picks, don't crucify me for this. Just embrace it. Just love it. I mean, if you don't like it, you can tell me in the comments and I'll acknowledge it. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. But if you hate it or love it, let me know. Does it suck? Does my pick suck for the honorable mention? What do you think? You think Jeremy McNichols was a great choice for an honorable mention outside of the top 3, the 4th best Commander the past week? You tell me, because you're about to see the top 3. This is my top 3 for this past week. I got to go with Brian Robinson Jr., 21 carries for 101 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown, along with Scary Terry McLaurin, 7 receptions for 52 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. Then you got to take a look at the man, the myth, and the growing legend right here. Jaden Daniels, 26 of 30 for completions out of attempts, 233 passing yards with 1 passing touchdown and 1 interception. He also had 8 carries for 47 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown, contributing 2 total touchdowns on the day. While you look at Brian Robinson Jr., who had his own touchdown on the day, and Terry McLaurin's receiving touchdown from that passing touchdown of Jaden Daniels, and our honorable mention that rounded out a good portion of how this team was scoring points against the Cardinals. When I look at that, it's kind of hard to not keep him outside of the top 3. But when you look at these numbers right here, I feel like they're justifiable. I feel like this, in my opinion, is the right top 3 for this game. You can look at the defensive side. You can look at Frankie Louvu and what he did for the team on the defensive side. You can look at Bobby Wagner, who had 7 tackles and 4 assists. It was also part of that half of a sack with Frankie Louvu because the 2 of them combined for that 1 sack. You can look at the fact that Dorrance Armstrong had 1.5 sacks. The fact that Jonathan Allen had his own total sack. And all those mentioned defensive players had several tackles of their own. You could put them in there. It's tough. But considering the fact that the offense has been the most dominant part of this team the past 2 weeks at least, because the first time they won, when they got the win against the Giants, it was a battle of field goals and it was absolutely ugly. That's why I can't drink so much of this Kool-Aid already, because of what they did against them and what they could potentially do against the Giants and Eagles when they play them twice. The Cowboys and Eagles when they play them twice, and the Giants when they play them one more time. There's still 5 more divisional games, y'all. But right here, for the Soldiers of the Week, I must say, I'm happy with those picks. What do you think? What do you think for the honorable mention? What do you think for the top 3 producers in this game this past week? Did I get it right? Did I get it wrong? Let me know as we go into the Showstopper.
High off the way that this sound, they turn up as soon as they feed the ground. I am not playing around. I hit them, I bet that they feeling me now.
Here for the Showstopper, we must take a look at this right here when it comes to not the Soldiers of the Week, as I have the wrong button clicked, but the adjustments that the team needs to make to improve from the week 4 win. Now, this is the same thing last week when we got to this point. We were talking about the week 3 win. I said, you can't look at this and say, based on the production that they had the previous week, they don't need to do anything else. They just need to keep it up. No, it doesn't. It's not going to work that way. There's still some miscues that we need to look at within this team. Okay. And it doesn't really more so fall on the hands of the quarterback as much, because that interception, you can argue the way it was tipped, the way things happened within that play, it wasn't completely at fault by Jaden Daniels. What you can say is that the offensive line needs to continue to improve each week, because I'm still not completely liking what I'm seeing out of them, because Jaden Daniels is still dancing around in the pocket too much. He still had 8 carries in this past game, which is a lot less than what he had the previous week when he had, I believe, 16 carries the week before. You gotta look at that for what it is. You gotta think about the fact that half of those plays, if that, are designed quarterback runs. They're not all designed quarterback runs when he's running for 16 times in the game. With what he did this past week, they did improve on that, because he ran the ball half the amount of times he did the time in the game prior when he was playing against the Bengals. He didn't run as much, okay? So the offense is improving. But we need to continue to see the numbers out of Brian Robinson Jr., putting up 20 carries in a game for 100 yards. It's not huge numbers, but it's pretty decent overall when you look at what they were doing last year, because they're able to mix things up between the pass game and the run game, because it all starts with the run game because you establish that. And then you have the play action fakes and the play action passes. And then you can also set up different things within special teams when you get enough first downs to where if you have to kick a field goal, like when you kicked 7 field goals a few weeks ago, you can do that when your offense isn't consistently getting into the end zone. It all starts with the run, and all that starts with your offensive line. So although they are been doing great in the past 2 weeks, they need to continue on the path of taking the plays out of Jaden Daniels' hands as far as running the ball. They need to continue keeping him from running as much. If they can do what they did this past week against the Cardinals consistently to where he's running the ball 8 times or less, then I can live with that. All right. But the biggest thing I want to stress here is the consistency of that. The defense as well, with what they did this past week with 14 points. They did exactly what I was saying that they would need to do when you look at the fact of they contained the Cardinals to only 14 points. Because when you look at what they did against the Bengals in the previous matchup, when they gave up just as much production to them as they gave up, as themselves put up, because they scored 38 points and the Bengals scored 33. They did a much better job at containing the Cardinals, and especially when you look at the fact that they have a young wideout, Marvin Harrison Jr., who's put up some decent numbers since week 2 in the past 3 weeks. Not really in the first game. He was non-existent. But in the past 3 weeks, including this, Marvin Harrison was active in the games and putting up numbers. You know, Marvin Harrison put up 45 yards on 5 catches and a touchdown. He still caught a touchdown pass. So he still put up half the points for the team because they only got 14. So when you look at it as a whole, they did exactly what I was calling for last week. I didn't call for them to win, but I said the only way they're going to be able to win is if they contain the Cardinals in the explosive plays they could potentially have with Marvin Harrison Jr. And they did. And that's why we got the results that we did. But if they want to continue to improve, the defense needs to continue to step up, and they have older players on defense than they do on offense. They have players that have been in this league a little bit longer, names that I was concerned about to start this year because of their age. Bobby Wagner's been a huge, huge core piece to that defense. He's been the heart and soul, one of the leaders of the defense. If the secondary continue to play like they did last week and not give up any deep bombs like they were doing the week prior when they were playing the Bengals, then we can see some special things this year. But I'm very concerned with the cornerbacks, the secondary of this team on the defense, because I was even saying it 2 weeks ago when they lost their first game of the year, that's what they're going to have to make improvements on during the offseason, unless they find a good trade that they can make during this season, which I wouldn't waste any draft picks on that. If I were the Commanders, the only thing that I would consider going after would be Devontae Adams. And even at this point, with the chemistry that you've already established within your young wide receivers and what they could potentially develop to be, I wouldn't even trade any of them. I wouldn't even try to affect any of what they've already built in the past month, because they look like they can only get better. So stay away from Devontae Adams if you're the Commanders front office. I think you got something special here, and through the draft and free agency next year, without costing you anything as far as capital to bring somebody in, I think they can continue to build something special that 5 years from now we could see hopefully a team in a Super Bowl, but also win, and hopefully within that 5-year span have a different name, because I'd like to have a different name than the Commanders Gridiron Report. You know, FYI, when that does happen, it's just going to still be the Gridiron Report, but we're going to put the new team name above it. If it was formerly known as the REDSKINS again, which I don't see it happening, but if it was, I would just literally swap it on out, because I still have it right here. All right? I'm a relic. Put me in a museum. Put my arm, my skin in a museum one day. We'll talk about that later, not right now. Okay? That entertainment is for another show called D. Willie in the Evening. Bing! which you will see in its shenanigans to the fullest very, very soon. But I'm not announcing a date yet because I have too much going on to give you a date right now. But it's coming. Right here and now for the Commanders Gridiron Report. Thank you to all of you who are tuning in. We still have plenty of a show left. And we got some comments that we have to acknowledge out here in these streams. When it comes to Sick Diggy, last time he had made the comment of the laughing emojis because the shenanigans have been at an all-time high. Sick Diggy also says McNichols came in and filled the void that was left with Eckler's injury. Yes, yes, yes. To the point that I'm not even going to finish that sentence yet until after this button has played through. Basketball fans, do you remember when that happened in Michigan State? If my man Hawk is out there in the streams, do you remember when that happened in Michigan State? Tell me out here in these comments, or when you see me on Monday, you can tell me too. But you can tell me right now if you want to as well. That would make my mother fathering night. Now, right here, when it comes to this second part of his statement here, says McNichols definitely contributed and played his part in last week's victory. He really did. If he can remain consistent, that's going to be the biggest part right there, because Brian Robinson needs a 1-2 punch. It's why they brought in Austin Eckler, and Austin Eckler's more well established as a receiving back than he is as a running back. So that's the kind of part that they needed to fill the void for Brian Robinson, because he's better as a power back and running rather than as a receiving back. Even though he can catch the ball, that's Austin Eckler's forte. So, yes, I'm with you, Sick Diggy. He filled a huge void with that because Eckler was looking like he was starting to heat up. But the one thing that we saw with the Chargers that we've already seen inside of the first month of the 2024 year that I was concerned about in the offseason, I was concerned about when they signed that mother father, I was concerned about it even when he was with the Chargers, his health. Because we all know, including myself in the personal life, we've already been up and down that road, how health can affect you, how it can set you back, and how it can also open your eyes to other things that you need to focus on in that moment. But I digress. Right here and now, huge statements by Sick Dicky dropping dimes out here in these streams. And remember, subscribe now. Never miss out on new mother-fathering content if you're watching for the first time on Sartoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome. Sick Dicky also says defensively, the secondary needs some fine-tuning. Studying more video footage of the opposing team helps a lot. Yes, it really does. Great dimes dropped by Sick Diggy out here. Offensively, the offensive line needs to protect the pocket a lot more, especially against stronger defenses down the road this season, which is why they struggled when they played Tampa Bay. I mean, Tampa Bay even proved it last night when they played the Falcons. I mean, they got a strong defense. They were putting the pressure on Cousins for the majority of the game until they ran out of gas, and Cousins found openings that they were giving him, and he sliced and diced them there at the end to win the game. So we got to look and see what happens. I mean, is this the case or not when it comes to this team right here? Can they continue to protect the pocket? Can they elevate themselves from how they were protecting the pocket previously and get better? Because that goes along with what I was saying earlier with Jaden Daniels dancing around as much as he was. And for the first time in quite some time, knocks the dust off his keyboard, off of his computer screen, and finally mother-fathering joins us. Mickey Delaney, what up, everyone, he says. Well, Mickey, glad to have you back out here. It's been a while since we've seen you here. I'm glad that you were able to make it with us here on a Friday night. Shivers is out here in the comments. And is that, I can't tell if that's my man Hawk or not. I might have to extend this screen at some point. Let me see. I can extend the screen right here. I don't know. Might be Hawk's older brother. I don't know. I got to get out of this full screen mode so I can still click buttons. But tell me, if that's Hawk, he says defense will continue to get better. Man, Hawk out here, I'm trying to get him on here. Trying to talk some football at some point. In his defense, he is at work right now. So maybe on a Saturday or Sunday, and get Hawk out here on these streams remotely from his own house. Sick Dicky says the Commanders might want to look into acquiring a couple more running backs, more depth and options for their offense. I mean, that's what they did with Austin Eckler, but I think that those moves are going to happen in the draft this year, in my opinion, or in free agency. It would have been great if the team could have picked up somebody like Derrick Henry this past offseason. The Ravens won that one right there. Plus, there was no telling what the Commanders could become at the time that Henry was signing or looking to sign with other teams. Because it was still very early on in the offseason mode. So good for the Ravens for getting Derrick Henry. It would have been nice to get somebody like Aaron Jones, who ended up going to the Vikings from the Commanders. I mean, the Vikings from the Packers, and making an impact there to a rival team. I'm glad that the Commanders did not get Ezekiel Elliott, because look, after week 1, he made a splash in week 1 for the Cowboys, but has been virtually non-existent since. So let's just be 100 here when it comes to that. And Shivers says, I'm not Hawk. Just found your stream. Loving the content, bro. Thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate it very much. And yeah, you literally look like my boy Hawk, who I work with. He has a desk right beside me. We talk football all the time at work. It's awesome. So thank you for tuning in and for loving the content. I really appreciate it. And Mickey Delaney, but you got to get to know this person there, Shivers. Mickey Delaney is a character here. Says, sick a diggy. Are you staying in your lane? I think Sick's staying in his lane. Sick's been doing a great job. Let's take it to some pro wrestling for a split second. Come on, Button.
Let me talk to you.
Like StreamYard, you're like straight up telling me this.
You should know your role and shut your mouth.
When it comes to clicking the button, it's literally like me telling you this because you're not doing what you're told.
English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
StreamYard, you're making it seem like we have a production that resembles this. But that's when I gotta cue up Bishop, Mother, Father, and Bullwinkle.
Hell to the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell no, to the no.
Gotta even bust out Ron Simmons to back me up with this. Damn! It's even old Chucky's like in the background saying this.
That's terrible.
Because old Jack up there smoking his cigars, straight up telling you this.
You can't handle the truth.
This is coming from a formerly known as REDSKINS fan. Do you support that message? I hope so. I really hope so. Because if not, I can't do this.
Delete!
It's the ink's permanent, bruh. Now, Sick Diggy is staying in his lane. Is it me that's staying in my lane? I don't know. But if you have a problem with that,
stay off the weed.
Because you shouldn't be that paranoid if you have a problem with it. Come on now.
Oh, my brother, testify.
To those of you who are just tuning in for the first time.
What's that?
With that.
And if you're feeling like this.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
And it's your first time here, click that subscribe button. Help your boy out. I do this every week. Primarily on Tuesdays in the afternoon with this show. But for a very special case, we're here on a Friday night because of life, making it to where I had to do this on a Friday night after all the priorities were taking place. Yes, we are here and live. Mickey Delaney dropping it down. And even Six says, I'm doing good. And Mickey Delaney, the folks at Build-A-Bear have been asking about you. Ooh, that is a teddy bear bird.
You like that? You like that?
That was not a total
surprise, motherfucker.
Some people are probably like, with all these buttons I'm clicking, saying,
would you please shut the hell up?
Come on now. I got more buttons to click, but let's save them. We'll save them for later. We still got plenty of show left. All right. There's some love going back and forth. Mickey Delaney loves him. He said we all look like. Come on, man. Come on, bro. Nah. But the beards you got, like the beard is another thing that reminds me of him. And I'm gonna get him on one of my shows one day. So if you haven't subscribed yet, do, and then you can see him. He's gonna be on here. We've talked about it at work one day. We just got to make it work within our schedules. So because he knows a lot of football and is a big Detroit Lions fan. So I'm gonna find a way in a show to get him on this platform so we can talk about it. And then you will see in that moment where you do kind of look alike in that moment, but not all everyone looks alike. Okay. And let's just say chopsticks. That's the closest I'm going with that statement. Is we got to keep things to where they don't cancel us, because it's not just me that works for SHOWSTOPPER out here in these streams. There are others that have a hand in it. So thank you all for tuning in. Are you on Facebook, Shivers? Says Mickey Delaney. And Shivers is best if you probably don't answer the question. Now, when it comes to that, when in the scary movie with the Wayans? What in the scary movie with the Wayans? He's got the laughing emojis from where I was clicking the buttons a few moments ago. Sick Dicky says Mickey Delaney is a teddy bear at heart. He's just lovable that way. And again, are you on Friday night now, Drew? Yes, we are live, Mick. I wouldn't be able to click these buttons right now and show your live comment if we were not live there, sir. Because we are in the Showstopper segment. We still have plenty of a show left, but we do have to also acknowledge one thing. And as I say acknowledge, I got to click the button.
Acknowledge me.
I'm acknowledging you and acknowledging me.
Acknowledge me.
One more again. I'm acknowledging the comments, and I also have to acknowledge that we have to take one more commercial break. And it's the last commercial break. And when we come back from that last commercial break, we're going to talk about the upcoming matchup they have this upcoming Sunday at home. We're going to talk about some expectations of that game and going forward, and expectations even for this show. Welcome to the very special extended edition of the Commanders Gridiron Report, because I actually have time to give you more time than I usually would if this was a Tuesday afternoon. Thank you as always for tuning in, and I'll see you on the other side of this last epic and entertaining commercial break, brought to you by SHOWSTOPPER Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Commanders, where my soldiers, right side, Commanders, where my soldiers, left side.
Everything Boston. I love you morons. New Kids on the Block, New Edition.
Dear whatever the law firm is. Sincerely, the U.S. Supreme Court.
Ben Affleck, Matt Damon. Go yourself again, Jason
Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, look. Hey, stop playing games. Y'all already know. Go ahead and toss him some Willie Bucks. Ain't nobody playing around. Hey, $sign DWillie87. Go ahead and hit him up on the Cash App and go ahead and give him some Willie Bucks. Look at Drew looking stoic, ladies and gentlemen. Stoic on that $10 bill. So go ahead, slide my man over some Willie Bucks, and we good. That's all I'm saying. We good. How some Willie Bucks?
SHOWSTOPPER Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Oh, yes. The tradition, the pageantry, the spectacle, the history, the slut. Wait. I gotta rep my brother's stuff right. All my DMV soldiers, stand up! And welcome to the Commanders Gridiron Report. If you want your Commanders to be repped right, well, D. Willie is your man. Commanders Gridiron Report. Every Tuesday at 1:05 p.m. Eastern, 12:05 a.m. Central on the SHOWSTOPPER Media YouTube channel. Music by J.KUL.
Where my soldiers, right side, Commanders. Where my soldiers, left side, Commanders. Where my soldiers.
Welcome back to the Commanders Gridiron Report. I am your mother-fathering host, Drew Willingham, as we are back for episode 27 to discuss the latest in your Commanders news. Now, we got a couple comments. We'll acknowledge those shortly. But right now, as always, this show is brought to you by
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
And we have to take a look at the opponent of the week.
Look how we step, Who we got next? Step on the right, step on the left. Who do we rep?
This week for week 5 on October 6th, this Sunday, 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, the Cleveland Browns come to town. And we have to take a look at what they have done. They are 1-3. That is a typo, as I think I was doing this graphic at like 4 o'clock in the morning not too long ago, and I overlooked it, as they are 1-2 at the point that I did it, but they are now 1-3 as the Commanders, who are now 3-1, host the Browns this weekend. We have to take a look at what has transpired for the Browns and why they have lost 3 games. You got Deshaun Watson as your quarterback, the man who enjoys more rubdowns than actually watching film and getting better at his craft and actually earning that $200+ million that was guaranteed, so that way he could potentially have 1,000 bottles of baby oil in his house. Oh, my bad. Let's hope he's not on that report. There's other names that are going to come out, if you know what I'm saying. The Diddler is in action. Yes, I'm up to current events. Your boy is hype. He's got street cred. I also have a championship belt, as you've seen in the graphics when I had long hair not too long ago before I cut it off and donated it. It's right here, the Sertoba Media Championship. All right? The W, the Washington logo, doesn't stand for the Commanders. It stands for Willywood, because I am D. Willie. And this is the Sertoba Championship. As you see, we have the Commanders Gridiron Report as one of the side plates, because all 4 side plates represent the 4 shows I produce. Now, we're not going to talk about me and me being the champ and all that stuff, because you can go back and watch the other shows, especially the one where it shows the breakdown of how this title was created, all the pictures and everything. It's great. Shout out to my guys, Brandon Guy and Hugh Scott, for building this thing for me. But it also has the Burgundy strap. Okay. I'm not joining this bandwagon, bro. I was already on it when I was a kid, and baby clothes when they were the logo that is on my left bicep. Okay. Let's save that for another day. You can go back, watch content. Got a lot of content on there. But what I will say, as the champ, okay, the Commanders are playing like champs right now, and they're playing against a team this week that are not champs. They absolutely suck. That being the Browns. And they suck because of the quarterback they have. Look at what Joe Flacco did with the Browns last year, when Captain Rubdown was hurt, couldn't play. Now look at how they are under 4 games with Captain Rubdown as their quarterback. Let's look into this real quick. Okay. First game, September 8th. Who do they host in Cleveland? A team that has their own problems right now. A team that is ran by Jerry Jones. Gerald's GM, the owner, gets in a helicopter and lands on the practice field. It practices like he did the other day. Gerald, he's your man. He comes to town in Cleveland with his Cowboys, and they beat you 33-17 in this game. Deshaun Watson was 24 of 45 for 169 yards, 1 touchdown, and not 1, but 2 interceptions. Their leading rusher was Jerome Ford, 12 carries, 44 yards, and a touchdown. The Commanders would swallow him whole if he puts numbers up like that in this Sunday's game. Okay? That's game 1. Let's look at game 2. Let's look at game 2 real quick. Who do they play? A team that has been playing terrible since week 1. hasn't won a game, that being the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they only beat them 18-13 in this contest. What did Deshaun Watson do in that game? 22 of 34 for 186 passing yards, no passing touchdowns, and even on the ground, he put up 5 carries for 20 yards, but I guess we can forgive him because he had a rushing touchdown. They're now 1-1. Okay, this is their 2 weeks. 1-1, 0-1 week 1, 1-1 week 2. Let's go to week 3, the beginning of their present losing streak. Who do they play on September 22nd? They host a team that the Commanders got in a field goal shootout against. It took 7 field goals for the Commanders to win this game, the ugliest of their games this year, even the uglier than their loss that they had to the Buccaneers, and they lost by 17 points. I say it's ugly because the only thing the two teams could do that day was kick field goals, and I'm talking about the Giants. The Giants went to Cleveland. The Giants go into Cleveland and score 21 points to the Browns 15. On September 22nd, Daniel Jones lights them up 24 of 34 for 236 yards and 2 touchdowns. Deshaun Watson, 21 of 37 in this game for 196 yards and has 2 touchdowns. Didn't throw for 200 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns. Jerome Ford, 10 carries, 37 yards. Their leading rusher, and still a big part of their downfall where they don't have any type of running game, because since Nick Chubb had that injury last year, they have been impacted with their rushing attack. More so this year, because last year they were doing okay with what they had with Dante Foreman and Jerome Ford. They were getting it done. But they also had a different quarterback at the helm last year when they had Joe Flacco leading the way and not Deshaun Watson, a.k.a. Captain Rubdown. Okay, that's your games that you have through the first 3 weeks and why you're 1-2. And now let's get to last week for the Browns. This is why they're at their 2nd consecutive loss, and they went to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders, a team that has been very dysfunctional this year. Because you look at the situation with Devontae Adams, even though I feel like Uncle Rico's been doing the best he can. Last week he did lay an egg, and he laid a very big one because he was 14 of 24 for 130 yards as the Raiders' starting quarterback. Okay. And with that, Deshaun Watson should have been able to take advantage of that and lead the Browns to a victory, get back on track, and be 2-2 to come to FedEx this week. But did Captain Rubdown do that? No, he didn't do that. He did not do that. What does he do? He puts up 176 yards on 24 completions out of 32 attempts, has 1 touchdown, but also 1 very big interception that was the difference maker in this game and why they lost 20-16. You had the opportunity to take advantage of this game with the way the Raiders were playing overall, and you failed to do it. Jerome Ford had a better game when he had 10 carries for 58 yards, but he's still not putting up enough production to take this Browns team seriously and to expect them to do something outside of what they've done, and that's lose 2 consecutive games, while the Commanders have lost 2 consecutive games. I know the previous 2 weeks I've sat here on this show and I've told you that I expect the Commanders to lose when they were playing the Bengals and when they were playing the Cardinals. Looking at what they had done in previous seasons, and especially what the Cardinals were overcoming, I thought it might be a little bit too much of an emotional homecoming for Cliff Kingsbury, but it just goes to show how much I know about the man and how much I know about the new talent on this team, because I was completely wrong. I own it. I told you at the beginning of this show I was going to own up to some things I had said last week, and I even said earlier on Total Football Talk, extra. Sorry, camera. Extra. I said earlier on that show that I was going to be coming in hitting hard once the internet finally worked itself out and we finally got back on the air tonight. Okay? Now that we're here, Ethernet cable and all, I don't do Wi-Fi. So it wasn't anything Wi-Fi related. It was ISP related earlier. Just for those of you who are just now tuning in, wondering, I said, I'm going to own up to what I said last week. Last week and the previous week, I said the Commanders are going to lose. And anybody with their analytic hat on, even if it's backwards, would tell you that they could see that happening because we expected the Cardinals to put up more than 14 points, especially when you look at what the Commanders did the week prior. They literally had to do more offensively than the Bengals, in which the Bengals had scored 33 points. If the Cardinals could put up 28 points, because I was calling it to be a 28-24 game, if they could put up 28 points, they were going to win. But they laid an egg and only scored 14, and the Commanders scored way more, 42 points, and that's why we saw that outcome. This week right here, and I hope I'm not wrong here, because then I'm going to have to start giving predictions the exact opposite of what I think is going to happen, just so what happens that I want to happen will actually happen if this doesn't go right. But my prediction this week, based on what I've seen the past 2 weeks, even in week 1, okay, I think the Commanders are going to win this game. I think that with the way their run defense is, they have a better run defense than they do a pass defense. And containing the Browns to 40 yards or less in the game, they have lost all 3 games when they have a running back that produces 40 yards or less in the game. So putting that in perspective and thinking about that here, it doesn't look like it's going to be that hard to do it because the Browns have been consistently averaging those numbers throughout the 4 weeks of this 2024 season. And Deshaun Watson can't even throw for 200-plus yards. Captain Rubdown can't throw for 200-plus yards. I think the Commanders contain them. And I'm not going to call for a big blowout like we saw last week. I'm not going to call for a shootout like we saw with the Bengals. I also kind of don't really want to call a close contest because I feel like they can open things up. I'm going to say 35-24. And that's probably being generous with the Browns. I don't think the Browns are going to score 24 points because they only put up 16 against the Raiders the week prior. But the Commanders definitely could put up 5 touchdowns. Let's say 38-24. They win by 14 points, but they get 5 touchdowns and a field goal. Let Seibert get a little action out there. I'm going to call 38-24. That's going to be my final take for this game for Sunday at 1 o'clock in FedEx. And I almost went to this game too, but I felt like the Bears game, and speaking with my man Paul Kelly, we felt like the Week 8 Bears game would be a better game to go see. Plus, it's going to be right there in the middle of the season. Because once they get through the 8th game, because they don't have a bye week between in the first 8 weeks. So they're literally going to be at the midway point. They're only going to have 9 more games after that. At that point, when I go watch them host the Bears at FedEx, I'm going to have a true understanding of how this season is going to go, I believe. Because usually by week 8, that's when I start getting a good feel from what I've seen the first 2 months. And I pretty much call it spot on after that. It's very tough to call things right now for this Commanders team, because we've seen them do what they did the last 2 weeks and in week 1, especially when they beat the Giants the way that they did. I mean, it was just absolutely ugly the way that happened. So, and actually my apologies, week 2, because the Commanders have now won 3 consecutive games. They lost the opener. Well, it wasn't their opener. It was the Buccaneers opener in Tampa Bay. And they've won 3 consecutive games. So putting all that together, they don't always have to be great, look great. They just have to happen. And they've been happening. So I believe they can get to their 4th consecutive win. And watch, now that I'm calling it, it's not going to happen the way I want it to. But that's what I'm calling for, 38-24. And let's see what you guys got to say here in the comments real quick. As Sick Diggy says, I've been mistaken for other people many a times. I learned to roll with it. Yes, I mean, that's what Shivers has been doing out here in these comments. So absolutely. Mickey Delaney is spreading the love, said he loves you, Drew. I love you too, Mick. Thank you for being out here in these streams with us tonight. It could be a tightly contested game, although Captain Rubdown will be too busy chasing happy endings than watching footage. Hopefully you like my substitution for Captain Rubdown. Or if you want to say this, it's okay too.
Would you please shut the hell up?
My personal opinion, the Captain Rubdown, people probably feel like this.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
There it is. Ain't nobody got time for that. Right here and now, Sick Dicky says, aren't the Browns missing their starting running back? Yes, that's Nick Chubb. So, yeah, that was what I was talking about around that time. And I think you might have asked that right around the time that I revealed it was Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb, just imagine your knee doing this. And instead of doing this, the knee went in backwards. That's the type of injury that he had. It was so ugly. Like, just imagine. I don't want to demonstrate it with my finger the next time I break my finger. I don't have time for that tonight. But just imagine your knee doing this as you're walking or running, but then the exact opposite happens, and your kneecap and all goes in, and your knee bends the other way. It was a terrible sight to watch. But that's what happened with Nick Chubb and the injury last year. I believe it was week 1 in last season. So. The question should be on who will be making the least or certain mistakes in this upcoming game. Yes, it's a very good question. And I think as he's answered that question in the past couple of weeks, Jaden Daniels is one of the few making mistakes. When you look at the completion percentage, when you looked at he only has 1 interception. He threw his first interception in this past game, and he's led the team to a 3-game winning streak. I think he's answering the questions. We got to look more at the offensive line, and the secondary on the defensive side needs to continue their production as well, like they did in this past week, because they were not doing that consistently in the first couple of weeks. They've been getting better each week. Since that first week loss in Tampa Bay, 37-20, they got smacked around. Okay? Got smacked around. Smacked around no more, or at least as of right now. After 4 weeks in this season. And believe me, I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid completely to those of you who are just now tuning in. And I've said it several times in the past hour and a half. Not drinking the Kool-Aid yet. I will after week 8 if I continue to see this type of play, though. Best believe you'll see a different type of podcast in a month or so if that's the case. Aren't the Browns missing their starting running back for this upcoming game? I mean, they've been missing Nick Chubb since he got injured last year. I mean, I still look at him as RB1. When it comes to their starting quarterback, I'm not quarterback, but starting running back for this game, when we go into the section here for the Cleveland Browns, and we click on news, because yes, I'm researching in the moment with you guys on the computer as I'm looking right into your screen and telling you that I'm doing such. There is a promising update on Nick Chubb that was given to Sports Illustrated, but he is not quite ready yet to come back, as I'm seeing right here, but it could be very soon. But they also have a Browns defender that announced that his season is over. When you look at what he has done for the team, and that's defensive end Alex Wright, who has made an impact on their defensive side. He is out for the year, the season-ending injury. There's also been talks about the Browns inquiring Devontae Adams, which I think that's BS, and I don't think that's going to happen at all. But when it comes to the running back, there has been no news on that. There's Sick Diggy to answer that. As far as Nick Chubb coming back anytime soon, Mr. Ford and Mr. Foreman are still the RB1s and 2 right now, but they will move down the chart when Nick Chubb is finally healthy. But still, looking at that game right there, and when his knee went backwards like that, it was I remember that day, and I remember that game. It was tough. Jim Sleazy's in the house. Shout out to you for tuning in there, sir. He says 28-9. Is 28-9 a score that you think is going to happen in favor of the Commanders? Or do you think that Captain Rubdown and the Browns are the ones that have 28 and the Commanders have 9? I'm pretty sure you're probably saying this is for the Commanders. So I'm going to go with 28-9 for the Commanders is what you're thinking. And that's a respectable take based on what they've done in the past couple of weeks. I mean, they can definitely score 28 points. The defense can definitely hold this the Browns team and Captain Rubdown to only 3 field goals. I can see it. But it's like every single time throughout the previous 26 episodes of this show, when I've made a prediction and I predicted something like this, it usually goes the other way around for the other team, and it results in an L. So I'm going to take the high road here, and I hope you're right. And I hope that you put some money on that on like DraftKings or something, and that comes in handy for you and you make a few bucks on it. But right here and now, I'm going to respectfully disagree and say 38-24. I'm going to say the Browns can put up some numbers, even though they haven't quite shown that they can yet this season. But they have a lot to play for this week. If they lose, they are at 1-4. And I feel like that if we're going to see the best of the Browns this year through 5 weeks, it's going to happen in this game, because they know if they lose another game and fall to 1-4, that their season's pretty much over. And Captain Rubdown is going to need to find another home, or they will find another home for him, for Captain Rubdown, because he will not be with the Cleveland Browns after this year if they fall to 1-4 and continue their losing ways. James Jones in the house, shout out there, brother, for tuning in, says he has earned my respect. That's what I'm talking about. Let's see what happens. We'll see what happens this Sunday and see if he continues to earn the respect. Mickey Delaney says Browns 30, Commanders 60. Mick,
stay off the weed.
I'm baffled. Yes, it is not a delay. I don't know what to say.
Now, that is absurd.
30-60. You think the Commanders are going to be at home and look at Captain Rubdown and the rest of those Browns players and say this?
You may claim to be the best in the world, but I'm better than you. And you know it.
Which could potentially happen, because they could look at Captain Rubdown and say that he claims to be the best in the world, which is why he got the kind of contract that he did in Cleveland. And he has been kind of punked since then, because they have turned out to be an absolute with him as their quarterback. And Joe Flacco proved that last year. So if they do put up 60 points and the Browns put up 30, which I don't see the Commanders giving up 30 points and scoring 60. I think that's pretty far-fetched. But at the same time, I do like where you're going with it. I'm not going to say that I dislike it. Well, I don't think it's going to be that kind of score. This year, I stopped predicting. We start winning it wild. So James is pretty much said he's not going to predict anymore this year, because every time he does, or he stops. This year, I stopped predicting, and we started winning as wild. You know, I'm glad that I didn't decide to can this show after the way the season went last year, because it was tough covering 17 games last year and talking about how bad this team was. It's been a pleasant surprise. I expected there to be improvement, and I expected them to still be probably close to an 8-9, 9-8 record at the end of this season, but they are exceeding my expectations, and I definitely feel like they're going to at least reach the 9-8 record now. I don't know how much better than that they can do. It's still very early in the season, but who knows? They're on pace right now to go 12-5, potentially 13-4. I don't think that's going to happen. But 9-8, I'll still stick with. But yeah, it's very tough to predict it, and I don't blame you for stopping to predict it, brother, because it's very, very tough to say, oh, they're going to lose this week, and then they win. It's not tough on me as the fan, but as the analyst of the team, it's a little tough, because now with me picking them to win this week, I'm concerned that they might revert and regress. As I digress in this statement, they may regress and go backwards. I hope not. because Jaden Daniels seems like the real deal. He's definitely in the top of the chart of the Rookie of the Year candidate so far within the first month. But he's also won a Player of the Week award, not once, but he should get it twice based on last week. And he's already in MVP talks as well, which RG3 was in 2012 throughout a good portion of that year, and then it kind of fizzled out, but he still won the Rookie of the Year. Wouldn't it be awesome if this continues throughout the rest of this year? Jaden Daniels leads them to a playoff berth this year and wins the MVP. I think that would be pretty cool. But at the same time, I don't want him to have too much success too soon and not be able to fully develop into something that this team has been waiting for a long time. For a quarterback who will be there for more than a year or two, who can lead them to the promised land and to the promised land multiple times. It's what this team has been waiting for. This is what this fan base has been waiting for. And it could be one of the best things to happen to the NFL, especially once they change the name to something that's a little bit more respectable. So James says it's going to be a close game. It's going to be close. And Six says, thank you, Rick James, for the fact of the button that I had just clicked a few minutes ago, because it was absurd in that moment. James also says, been Washington fan for nearly 50 years. Oh, man. Oh, man. So James experienced the ups and the downs from back when they were the formerly known as the Redskins. You know, like myself, I've been a fan of this franchise for 37 years. As when I was born, the parents had me in formerly known as Redskins, baby clothes. Okay, so I was born into this. I was alive for the second championship for the 87 season, and in 92 when they won it for the 91 season, I had just turned 5. Kind of remember it, not really so much. I'm looking forward to seeing this franchise win a championship in my adulthood during a time I can actually remember it. And when it happens, I don't even think I'm going to have a drink of an adult beverage that day because I want to make sure I remember it in full because it's been that long. Who knows? Times can change. But right now, to those of you who are just tuning in, subscribe now and never miss out on new content. I'm saying 38-24. The Commanders win over the Browns at home this Sunday. For those of you watching who are in the DC area, the DMV area, if you go to games and you're still looking for a game to go to the Week 8 contest on October 27th at FedEx Field. I will be there in very good seats. You'll be able to see me. And if you reach out to me, Drew Willingham, my name, Facebook, Instagram, wherever, I'll even tell you where they're at. Come say what's up. We can meet in person. So, and I think we're going to even take the Sartoba Media Championship with us right here. We can even take a picture of it together. You holding it, me hanging out with you. We could do that at FedEx on October 27th. Let's go ahead and take this to our final segment of the show, because we have to take it to the final drive. But one last time before that.
What's that? What's that?
And that was it. Goes to those of you who are just now coming back to the show as we are approaching the second hour, but we won't be here for much longer as we got to take it to the final segment of the show, and that is the final drive.
We bet on ourselves, so what you expect? A diehard fan never live with regret. Yes, sir.
And here with the final drive, it's my closing thoughts on the Commanders heading in to Week 5. When it comes to the final drive, when it comes to Week 5, when it comes to what we've seen from this team, it's been a joy to watch. Especially the year that I acquired this championship. You know, Commanders colors and everything. Even the strap is burgundy. Okay. Even for those of you out there, you know, this is pretty huge. This is something that will actually help me remember this championship right here. The year that I acquired it. I acquired it back in the spring from my good pals, Mr. Guy and Mr. Scott, designing this thing for me. I can remember that the first year this belt came in, the team actually turned things around. or at least the first month of the season. I'm hoping that my prediction for this upcoming week comes true. I'm hoping that for you Commanders fans out there, it comes true as far as getting a 4th consecutive win, because 3 consecutive wins in the NFL is not easy to come by. My apologies for butchering it earlier and saying 2 consecutive wins. It just goes to show how busy I've been and how exhausting life can really be out here in these streams. I really enjoy doing this, doing podcasting. I don't do this full time. I don't have the following yet to do it full time. And I say yet because I feel like we can get there. You, me, everybody out here who shows up and participates in the chat. I feel like we all deserve it to do it together. Even if some of you continue to show up in the chat and we strike up enough conversations to where we can get you on here remotely from your own house, send you a link, you join it, we talk about this, or maybe even something that isn't even the Commanders show, because I have multiple shows. Total Football Talk, which is what I do with Cole Johnson. Total Football Talk Extra. I guess you could say 5 shows with that now. Commanders Gridiron Report, which is this. D. Willie in the evening. The In or Out Sports Debate. Multiple shows at the disposal. The In or Out Sports Debate probably won't be back for a while because of how intricate that is, and I'll miss it. But I'm glad we were able to have this past run that we did, because I knew with how the end of the year was going to go, I wanted to get it in while I could. And I think for about 10 or 12 weeks consistently, we had that show going. Got to 120 episodes. And knowing what I've been through personally and with the changes and stuff throughout the run of that show and the different hands that have been a part of it, the people that have come and gone personally and professionally, there's been a lot of changes. And some of those people who were a part of things before those changes still live on within the work that they have produced. And I will continue to do that as I have the rights to do that. Here and now, when it comes to this show, when it comes to the Commanders, I've said it a lot throughout the past hour and 52 minutes, and I'll say it again. I love what I'm watching. As someone who critiques what they do, as someone who started this whole thing in life as just a fan of the team. There were a lot of school years growing up that I dealt with a lot of things thrown my way because of being a fan of the formerly known as the REDSKINS, and how terrible they were, how they weren't going to win another Super Bowl. And if they never go back to the previous name, those kids were right, because they never did. That's just the name changed. But the lineage of the franchise still lives on. And it lives on through the fans of the team. The colors still remain. The home of where they were at still remains. And if they do relocate, and it's looking like they could potentially renovate RFK and go back there, they will still be within the same lineage. They still are recognized as a 3-time Super Bowl champion. Okay. They are not, a brand new team or anything since they renamed themselves a couple of years back. But I will say I miss them being the Washington football team to an extent, because I like calling them the Washington team of football, #WTF. As I go through my thoughts on this franchise, I'm just kind of reflecting on how tough it was, and still at times is, to be a Commanders fan. Now, right now, in the past few weeks, it hasn't been. It's been a nice change of pace. But even if you go back and look at week 1's recap from my show, then if you look at the preview the week prior for it, I was still staying pretty optimistic on things, because I was saying hopeful for an 8-9 season. 9-8 would be even better. Now I'm still sticking with the 9-8, because anything can happen. There are teams, you look at the 2016 Minnesota Vikings, who started 4-0, who were doing great things, kind of like what the Vikings this year are doing. And they were 4-8 for the remainder of that year. That was back when they were still doing 16-game seasons. And they finished 8-8, missed the playoffs. This is why I'm not drinking too much of the Kool-Aid yet. Let's give it 4 more weeks. I'll live in the moment and tell you the wins from the previous week and break it down and be all as amped up as I was earlier during the review process. But then when it gets to a point of where we have to really talk about the upcoming week and the expectations, I hope I've kept it pretty centered for you guys and pretty even keeled throughout this show. Because that's my goal. That's my anticipation, but also to entertain you in the process, because you could be watching anything else at this time, but instead you're here with me. And I really appreciate it, which is why I do the best I can to acknowledge as many comments as I can and be as interactive with you guys as I can as I look to build this platform even more than what it is. We're currently on YouTube for Sartoba Media at 1,248 subscribers. I'd like to get 2 more subscribers. That's all we need to get to 1.25K by the end of this weekend, if possible. If not, I won't have any hard feelings. We'll get it next week, at some point soon. To do what we've done just a little over a year, to be at 1.24 thousand subscribers, to even have people like yourselves be able to communicate and jump in on short notice when I've rescheduled this one particular episode like 5 or 6 times this week, just because of how busy life has been. I appreciate you sticking around. Even Sick Dicky, like our number one, fan of the platform, the brand, and the even my brothers out here who I collaborate with, like Cole Johnson and Kyle Nash. He does a great job with tuning into their stuff and commenting there as well. But definitely wouldn't be where we're at with all of this if it wasn't for all of your contributions. Sorry for the noise in the background there just a second ago. But when it comes to that and everything else that's going on out here in these streams, wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. So for the subscribers, for those of you who are watching this live, and there's even a lot of you that watch this when it's in post-production, thank you very much. Because this, the brand, the belt, a lot of different things wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. So come back and see us. I won't be back on the airwaves until Monday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern time, with Total Football Talk, as we will review the entire weekend in NFL. And I'll even talk about the Commanders in that show too, but not for as long as I've talked about them here. To be a lot more condensed, along with the other games that we've got going on this weekend. This is the first week of buys in the NFL. I believe the Detroit Lions are definitely one of those teams that are on bye this weekend, and we'll start to see more of that as time goes on. The Commanders play – I like the way their schedule is set up, because I prefer having the bye later in the season past the midway point when you really need that week to really recover. I've never been a fan of having the bye week early on, because I feel like it kind of throws you off a little bit, because you get later into the season when you could use that bye first or second week in November, which is around the time that the Commanders have theirs. Their schedule this year isn't that bad. Last year, the schedule was a little hard, okay? And especially when you look at that and the overall talent they had on the team, it just wasn't going to go their way. Their schedule this year, along with if they remain consistent and healthy, they can make a playoff run this year. But I still feel like it's too good to be true, and there's going to be some obstacles that occur somewhere between November and December, and it's really going to kind of steer them off a little bit. So we shall see what happens within that time frame. But from me to you, I still express the same sentiment. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. We've got a couple comments here. And James says, I like to see us keep it steady like we used to. Yes. So with you being a fan of for 50 years, you're saying like the Hogs times, like in the 80s when they were steady like then, the 80s into the early 90s. Because by the time 94 got here and Joe Gibbs was out, and that was around the time they were starting to downfall when Norv Turner came in, because when they won the Super Bowl in 91, well, January of 92, they only made it to one more NFC championship. And I believe it was the year after they went to the Super Bowl and won in 91. I believe they were in the 92 NFC championship game and lost to the Cowboys, I believe. Maybe. Yeah. Lost to the Cowboys. You tell me, you've been the fan for 50 years. I mean, I was watching the game, but I don't remember it like photographic memory because I was 6. I'm pretty sure in 92, season, they went to the NFC Championship game the year after they won. And the way it was structured then, even though they were divisional opponents, they had to play the Cowboys because of seeding, the way it worked out. And they lost to the Cowboys, and the Cowboys went to the Super Bowl. It was either 92, the year after they won a Super Bowl in 91, or it was in 93, they went to the NFC Championship. They still lost because they didn't go back to the Super Bowl after they won in 91 because Mark Rippon played video game all year long and led them to the Super Bowl and then did nothing after that. Nothing of note in his NFL career. But, yeah, absolutely great year by the Commanders, then known as the Redskins at that point. And a great year for them this year. And we shall see how things turn about for the remainder of the year. When it comes to the final drive, when it comes to episode 27 of the Commanders Gridiron Report, that is all I have for you this evening. We only got one more thing left to do after acknowledging the fact that we've been through 27 episodes within the past year, covering now the second season in a row of this platform's availability to cover the Commanders. I am Drew Willingham. In the words of everybody else, or in the words to everybody else, I want to say to you all one last time.
What's that?
Followed by.
You like that? You like that?
Had to for nostalgia reasons. We're about to look at one badass outro on the way out. But from me to you, as always, please, pretty please, sugar on top. Stay safe out here in these streets.
Commanders, where my soldiers, right side. Commanders, where my soldiers, left side. Commanders, where my soldiers, watch the middle. Commanders, where my soldiers, now we step. Where my soldiers, right side. Commanders, where my soldiers, left side. Now we step. Where my soldiers, watch the middle. Commanders, where my soldiers, hit 'em.
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
You don't have to go home, but you got to get yourself on up out of here. Thank you, as always, for tuning in to the Commanders Gridiron Report. I will see you next week.